Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the Morning Market Prep video for March 22nd, 2024. Well, happy Friday, everyone, and welcome back. Let's take a look at what happened overnight in these markets. First off, we had Asian markets mostly lower. As a matter of fact, only the Nikkei was up. It hit a new record high, even as their inflation was shown to be accelerating over there. And then we have Hong Kong took a pretty big tumble overnight, dropping 2.16%, down $363. If we take a look at the European markets are mostly higher. And here in Europe, of course, they made new record highs as well. But they're relatively flat this morning. As a matter of fact, the CAC is just a little bit lower. But remember, this is very, very early when I'm recording this. U.S. markets are, of course, once again green and trying to push higher since I got up this morning, already trying to get everyone all fired up to continue to this chase to the upside, and they're still trying to push higher up. Now, there is a little bit of a reason for that. We have bonds just a little bit lower here this morning, kind of easing off just a little bit more, and that's got the market all fired up. We continue, that's the bond yields anyway. We take a look at oil. Oil is relatively flat, but just ever so slightly here higher at the moment. Up 11 cents at 81.19 a barrel. Brent crude is up 11 cents at 85.89 a barrel, and natural gas is unchanged. Now, of course, if you've been going out and buying any gasoline at all, you know those prices are going up, and this is pretty typical. Seasonally, you will typically see one of the highest prices of the year in gas prices will be somewhere around that Memorial Day. So we've still got a little bit of time on that, and we really could see gas prices continue on higher. We've got gold this morning. Gold and silver, they're pulling back a little bit on this decline in bond yields, and we're also seeing declines in the crypto world as well. So what does all that mean? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. And let's get ready for the Friday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a peek at these charts and see if we can pick up a little information about how we may want to approach the market for today. Remember to try and shake off a little bit of bias. We want to look at the charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be, and try and make some decisions on how we might approach the day. Well, first off, as you can see, we've had a 3-day extension here, very, very strong, continuing to leave gaps behind in the market. And that always makes me nervous when we stretch and continue to leave gap after gap after gap behind in the market. We've left quite a few as we have been rallying since the first of the year. But we'll want to keep a close eye on this as we continue to move up. Remember, diamonds, all-time record highs. And when we have blue sky above, there's no reason to believe that we cannot continue to push through. Friday has been one of those days. It's been typically bullish. You can see we've got that push up here this morning, trying to develop a bit more energy. So if we can push through this wick up here, then we're going to have a new high, a new record print in the market. And I think there's every reason to believe that could be possible. Now, one thing I will say is if the bears were to find inspiration, and I couldn't be all that surprised after this big stretch, that we get a little bit of profit taking here, maybe not this week, but going into next. Watch that carefully, because pulling back, trying to find a support level in this chart would be a normal progression in the market. So if those bears were to find some energy here, maybe a pushback to retest that low of yesterday's candle, keep an eye on that. If we slip past that, then I think we slip into this gap. And then going beyond that, we're going to likely come back down into this level of the chart. So watch that carefully. Now that would be a really big point move to come all the way down here, and I don't see any reason that we're going to do that. But there is reason that we might just start taking a little bit of profit heading into the weekend. If we take a look at our SPY also record highs, continuing to show lots and lots of bullishness. So blue sky above, there's no resistance up there in that chart to be worried about. If we were to see the bears push back, well, once again, if we push up here, we get new record highs, and I don't see why we couldn't do that. It's not that much of a push to do it. If the bears were to show a little bit of spunk in here and push down, test of yesterday's candle as the low, filling the gap, and then once again, very similar situation coming on back down to test a support. And we all know that it's a fairly common move in the market. When we stretch up like this, we will rest, consolidate, pull back. So watch carefully for that opportunity, maybe going into next week. If we take a look at our QQQ really struggled a lot more than the other indexes to break through, but we finally got that gap yesterday, pushing up new record highs in the market on the QQQ, and you can see then we faded back to test this area of price support. So if the bulls can find inspiration today to continue that buy wave, then we need to see this push on through and break through the top of that to set more new record highs in the NASDAQ. If the bears were to find inspiration today, well, a slip it back below this line right here would likely dip us into this gap, and maybe look for a gap fill there first. Filling that gap, if we were to fail on further beyond that, well, then you can see we might be coming back down into here to test this price support of the underneath side of that candle. And then of course below that we have this bigger support in the chart. So that would be tremendously painful pullback for the NASDAQ. But first step here, see if we fall into that little gap and test yesterday's candle high. So watch that. And then IWM still trying to stretch up here to test this bigger resistance in the chart. And I keep pulling this back so you can see it. This is a substantial resistance area in the Russell. And although we continued to stretch up here yesterday, we didn't quite make it up there. We went up, took a look at it, said, yeah, not sure. You can see this morning we're trying to push up there. Every reason to believe that we could test this resistance. The question is, will we be able to break through and hold? We tried that once, tried to break through and then reversed. Let's see if we can do it this time and push on through. And that would be hugely bullish for the IWM if we were to push up through here and then hold above this area in the chart, reaching that new level in the Russell. If the bears are to find inspiration here today, then just keep in mind that if we were to push back in here, pushing into yesterday's candle low and then falling into that little bit of gap would be the pullback I would be looking for. Past that, we might find some price support. You can see there's a little bit of price support through here. I'm going to go off to that top of that candle right there, and that would push us back to the middle of this big white candle that we saw on Wednesday. So watch that carefully. Beyond that, we fall into this area of price support, but just watch that closely. Right now, I think there's a pretty good chance we're going to try everything we can to break this out up here. So watch that close. If we take a look at our VIX continuing to fall yesterday, but then reversed. We found a little bit of price support here around those 12.5 handles. But one of the things you want to pay attention to is this trend was broken. So our trend to the upside, we broke that down, and certainly the bulls are in control here in the VIX. We're showing no fear in this market. One thing I will tell you is this is a fairly common thing to happen when we reach a level in the market where we're just so exuberant that we continue to push our fear down in the market, saying that there's nothing to worry about, nothing to worry about. And that's what happens when we kind of get overexcited on the bullish side. Now, I'm not saying that is the case here just yet, but if that were the case, we could continue to see this slipping to the downside and making even new lows in the market if those bulls can continue to push. Well, with that little hammer pattern in there yesterday trying to bounce back up, what I would be watching for is if it follows through to the upside. We want to see if we can break back through this area of resistance in the chart. Pushing back up into here would raise a little bit of fear, and then a hold up here is where the problem would really start to come into play. But for now, don't see any signs that we're going to be horribly fearful in the market unless we start to see some of those gaps getting filled to the downside in the market. So bulls are definitely in control here, large and in charge, and they don't seem to worry at all about what prices are being paid here in the market. As long as they can hurry up and buy something. Then let's take a look at our T2122. Our T2122 being the 4-week new high, new low ratio. And what we see in here is a T2122 that is very stretched out here to the upside. Notice that we're up here in the bearish reversal zone. Remember, this is calculated on the NYSE, and it's just the 4-week new high, new low ratio. And what we're looking at here in this chart is that, whoops, I'm sorry, that's a 2-day. I better fix that to a 1-day. There we go. There's our daily. And our daily yesterday showed us that little bit of a hook up here in that chart, showing that little bit of weakness after we gapped up and ran. Then it just kind of chopped around. It couldn't follow through to the upside. I think there's a reason for that, just overextension. But if we can continue to find that bullishness this morning, and we're already seeing it in the pre-market, then we could pump this up a little bit higher here. But remember, this cannot go beyond 100 in that in this measure, because it's a ratio of the 4-week new high, new low ratio. And then if the bears were to find inspiration, well, one of the things you want to make note of is it'll be a whole lot easier for the bears if they attack, because we have stretched these prices up, and it would really only take a little bit of profit taking in the market to start pulling that back. So watch carefully for that possibility heading into the weekend. And then if we take a look at our T2108, this is a percentage of stocks above the 40-day moving average. Big surge here this week. We really took off on Wednesday. We continued to stretch that up yesterday. We ended up with this little tiny bit of a hook here, up here at the top. Sometimes that means we get a little rest or pullback in this. If you take a look across over here, though, the bulls are definitely in control. We've got some resistance up here to be thinking about in the chart. But if the bears were to push back in here, we've got some good support levels well. So I don't think there's any major particular worry here today, unless something specifically reverses the market. And I don't see that happening this Friday, at least at the moment. It'd almost have to be a world event, I think, to do that, to tamp down this enthusiasm that the market has. So if we take a look at our T2107, T2107 continuing to extend up, big breakthrough here in that chart. Now we are getting into an area of pretty significant froth here in the T2107, and what that means is that we are reaching an area where we could be suggesting that everybody that's going to be in is in, and there's not a whole lot of additional capital to push in here to the market. The fear of missing out trade might be running its course here at the moment, but we could push a little bit higher. We've got some resistance levels up here to be thinking about, and if the bears were to come in, well, we certainly have some good support levels in here as well. So bulls are still very much in control, maybe getting a little bit on the frothy side here on this extension, but I don't think there's any major signs of a pullback in any way, shape, or form yet. So don't worry necessarily about that. Stay with the trend, stay with the bullish trend, keep raising the stops until something breaks, and that's all we can do here on a market like this. If we take a look at our T2101, now this had a good improvement here this last couple of days. Big surge in the market breadth to the upside. Now the question is, can we continue that move to the upside with blackout periods and the corporate buybacks dying off and then moving into the next quarter of earnings here? We'll want to watch that carefully, and I suspect there's a pretty good chance we could see this pull back. Now, that's if the bulls continue to maintain control here. We're just going to run out of that bullish energy here. Eventually, everybody's in, and we'll want to watch carefully for that possibility that we could fade back. And I still think this is pretty remarkable. If you were to plot the market against the market breadth, well, we've got a massive divergence here in that move. So just be kind of careful here. And then let's take a look at our earnings calendar, our economic calendar here today. Our economic calendar, well, we've got not much here to worry about other than a whole bunch of Fed speak, including Jerome Powell. Now remember, sometimes we get this very dovish thing coming out of Jerome Powell in at the FOMC. Market reacts to it, and then we seem to get an awful lot of the Fed members talking that back, kind of tamping down some of that enthusiasm. I don't know if that's going to be the case here today, but we've got quite a bunch of speakers here to talk about it. We'll see how that goes, and of course, always pay attention to Jerome Powell when he speaks, because he can certainly move the market. And then we've got Baker Hughes at rig count in here as well, which nobody's probably going to care much about. If we take a look at our earnings calendar, well, guess what, y'all? On the earnings calendar, there really isn't much to go on. We have no notables for today. In the market, there are some trades out there or are some stocks that will be reporting, but they're all essentially very small cap stocks. We have like a Humana will be reporting in here, but there just really isn't anything of a particular notable in the earnings today. There's only 5 verified stocks, and all of them are very, very small. So not much of a worry there. So we'll run out of a little bit of inspiration on that. So let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me this quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube. Also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you could do me that favor, and that would be click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel to grow. Thank you so much for everyone who does take the time to do that. You know, Friday's one of those days where I see the numbers of people that watch the videos, they're fading at the end of the week. Everybody's tired, and I certainly get that. But any help or support that you give me on this is very much appreciated. And please feel free to share these videos. Just share that link out there on your social media feed. That helps a lot, and I truly, truly appreciate it. Let's take a look at some stock setting up. Remember, guys, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence. Be very, very careful here in the market, and make sure that you're following your rules and guidelines. Never, ever take those knee-jerk trades, you know, the hot tip trades from anyone else. Make sure you do the job and follow your risk tolerance rules for your trading. Let's take a look here at a couple that I think are pretty interesting. First off, we're likely going to see TLT continue to move up here. The bond yield's weakening. So as we watch this, one of the things that I'm going to be paying attention to, if we're going to be strongly bullish in the market and continue this, we need to see a major pickup here in bond purchasing. It's starting to happen, but it's a little bit weak. If we can break this back up here above this downtrend and hold up here that higher low, then I'm going to be interested, and I'll probably be adding to. I've got a longer term hold on TLT, and I'll probably be adding quite a bit to that trade. Now, it's still pretty ambiguous whether we're going to get that lift here in the market. And one of the reasons I think is we're really, although we've been pushing our financial stocks higher here, we're really starting to see some cracks in the system. And next week could be interesting because China's Country Garden will be reporting earnings, and it's expected to not only miss but be pretty ugly. And Country Garden is now under a wind-up order, which is asking the Hong Kong court, just like they did with Evergrande, to start liquidation. And there are some big dollar developers, I mean huge dollar developers, that have some ramifications or money from our regional banks that are likely to see some impacts if we start seeing that real estate crisis over there in China continue to erode. So watch carefully here. Next week could be interesting on these banks. Not so much in the big financials. They're certainly looking very, very good, but on the regionals, take a look at KRE. Now, KRE surged hard on Wednesday, and trying to break this downtrend here in the chart, but we've even seen some stories here that there are cracks starting to show, and they're suggesting that there's about 11 regional banks right now that are functionally insolvent, and quite a few others that are on the brink. So we'll want to watch that carefully, particularly if we hear more about issues of real estate collapsing in China. So watch that closely next week. Now, if we were to take a look in other areas of the market, boy, when we see the dollar starting to strengthen, got a nice little pop here and we're strengthening this morning, well, that has negative impacts on our commodity prices. And although that's going on, boy, we look at energy, boy, we're not seeing that major pullback here in energy. This is XLE, continuing to see that hold up pretty strong here, even though the dollar is strengthening. Typically, you would see this start to weaken as the dollar is strengthening, but we've got that supply problem here on energy, and we're heading into the drive time of the summer, and we typically see those prices move higher. So watch that carefully here. But we are seeing things starting to slide back a little bit, such as gold. Gold had a big pop up yesterday, but reversed during the day and continuing to slide down. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on this. If gold pulls back into here and holds that support level moving out to this trend, well, then I'm going to have an interest in it again. So keep an eye on gold, silver. If you look at some of the miners out there, all of the miners are in pretty good bullish patterns. Like I said, need a rest, need a pullback, and we're getting that now, but I would keep a close eye on those. Now, when we take a look at some of the food commodities, doggone it, I can't type some mornings. There we go. Soybeans. Soybeans gapping lower here this morning. It was stretching up yesterday in that move, but that dollar is showing some impact here this morning on that. But I would still watch this as long as this holds this upside trend. That little whip back down here into support may not mean anything if we can gain a little bit of strength right here and push right back up. So watch that closely in soybeans. Corn also holding here in a bullish pattern, and I would continue to keep an eye on that. We're seeing quite a few of those food commodities holding up pretty well at the moment. Cocoa, for chocolate is at record highs. It's just phenomenally strong. So keep an eye on some of those. We're also seeing things like Tyson. Tyson moving higher here. So there's your a lot of chicken products and things in there, and Tyson moving up higher here, stretching to the upside. We're seeing Hormel holding in here in a nice potential buy pattern. If the bulls can push on through into that, keep an eye on those. We're seeing some of the defensive type sector stocks holding into bullish patterns. Hershey breaking through a major basing situation here, showing bullishness in this chart and possibly that opportunity to move on higher. We saw that big stretch this last week in PepsiCo breaking through, pushing up. I'm going to raise this up now, pushing up through some resistance in the chart, resting up in here. I would watch for that opportunity for that to potentially break on higher. Monster Beverages pushed up through a major resistance here in the chart, and although it's faded back here just a little bit, I would keep an close eye on this for that possibility that it could find some inspiration and continue to push on through here to the upside. So seeing some of those drinks staying very, very bullish here in the market, trying to push on higher in some of those defensive sector areas. So I would watch those closely. Let's take a look at a couple other areas. You guys know I've been talking about Tractor Supply. Wow, Tractor Supply got a big surge yesterday, and we're pushing back up here toward this channel high in the market. So watch that. If we can push on up there and test, I would look for a little rest or fade back here. But I've been talking about this since right here on this alert. And right there would be another place to have alerted on that trade. Kept talking about it, and looking really good here in the market as Tractor Supply continues to surge. Take a look at this TEVA. Now this has been range bound here for quite a while and stuck, and in the last couple of days good surge to the upside on TEVA, trying to make that breakout in here in the chart. So pop up in there, and if it proves to hold up in there, I would be watching for that next opportunity in there on Teeva to move to the upside. So you guys know I've been holding some oil. This APA continuing to work out here. I took some profits on this. I sold half of my position on this at 25%. Yesterday it hit up 28%. I have the rest of this position covered calls against it. If you guys want to learn how to do that, how I make money from both sides of a trade often, give us a look over here at Right Way Options. You can go to the Hit and Run Candlesticks website, take a trial, see if we would be a good fit for you and help you with your trading. But this is looking pretty good overall. I'm actually profiting right now on the long calls and profiting on the short calls here at the same time. So keep a close eye on that. I did add a position here. I think it's a little bit early and it could be a little bit sketchy, but little tiny guys like this tend to move in a big way, and I didn't pick up any kind of a big position in here, more of a starter trade. But take a look at this LAC. Lithium is one of the things that we're putting lithium in everything. Even cordless tool batteries are full of lithium anymore. So watch that carefully in here, that opportunity here in LAC, that we could move on higher here soon in the market. Now we've got a major chop zone. You can see how we got stuck in this range here for a long period of time. So I'm not suggesting this is just going to zoom right straight through there. We could bounce around in here for a while before making our way out. But it may be time to start keeping an eye on LAC, looking pretty decent in there overall. Take a look at PayPal. PayPal's made some good moves this week, breaking through this major downtrend here in the chart. I'm going to adjust that line up just a little bit. That major downtrend here in the chart, and also pushing up through some resistance levels here in the chart on this base. And if we were to change some drawings in here and just push, darn it, I didn't want that. There we go. Push this like this. We've got a little trend starting here in the chart to the upside. So any rest or pullback here now in PayPal, this is turning around and looking pretty interesting. So watch that carefully for that next move to the upside. Take a look at things like Block, SQ, really starting to stretch there to the upside as well. We popped through, pulled back, hesitated a little bit, rested. We've got a little bit more energy here at the end of the week. We've pushed up. I still think there's a chance that this could rest back into this trend. Notice all of this big basing pattern starting to happen in here, and that opportunity that may push on out, assuming that the pay systems continue to see that inflow like Visa. My goodness, Visa really stretching up here, showing lots of bullishness. You can look at AXP, lots of bullishness. MasterCard, lots and lots of bullishness in those pay systems, so keep a close eye on those. You may want to take a look. I saw there were some upgrades here in Boeing. Now, Boeing has been, wow, really lost a lot of favor in the market, lost a lot of consumer confidence, I think, here in those companies buying Boeing at the moment. But you can see had a good surge here on Wednesday, back up off of this floor. If this can hold a higher low in here, and particularly if it can break out above that downtrend and hold a higher low, you might want to start looking at something in Boeing, as well as just being something that's very sold off here. Now, if it were to fail underneath this trend and drop below here, well, all bets are off. It could go a lot lower, but keep a close eye on that. And I do think it's a good idea for me to just mention Apple. Big change happened here in Apple yesterday. A Department of Justice suing Apple for a monopoly, and a big reversal here following this downtrend, breaking some support levels here in the chart. We'll want to watch this carefully. The next level I would watch pretty closely would be this level right down here. A breakdown below that level could be critical, because you can see that could drop us into a pretty big area of the market where Apple could decline. So keep a close eye on that. Some troubles on the forefront here for Apple. So with that, everyone, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. Thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Take that time, get some rest, spend some time with family. Money's one thing, but family is more important. So enjoy your weekend with your family, and I'll see you right back here bright and early Monday morning. Have a great weekend, everyone.